Hey everybody, here's one of my videos that I've always wanted to do. I'm going to try this real quick, see how this works out. Tonight we're going to do some step 2 work, and in that step 2 work, one of the things that I like to do is to kind of point out that we all have different beliefs about the spiritual world, about higher powers, about God, and I want to point out what's similar, what everybody goes through, and keep us all on a level playing field. I don't think any one of us is any greater than any other one of us as far as spiritual knowledge and knowledge of God and that kind of thing. And I always like to describe how I believe and I realize that we all develop our spiritual lives and our spiritual understanding in the same kind of way. First of all, we're taught something. We're taught that there is a God or there's not a God. We're either taught something actively, like we go to church and we go to Sunday school, or we go to temple and we learn Hebrew in a Hebrew class, and we learn certain books are the gospel word of God that we should follow, right? And if we're not taught something specific about God, at least passively, we're taught something, because if you never went to church, if nobody ever took you to church when you were a kid, what your parents were teaching you was, spiritual world's not that important. God's not that important. There may or may not be a God. We may have been taught to believe, or we may have been taught to doubt. We may have been taught to be devoted. We may have been taught to be carefree, right? So we may or may not have been taught about a judging God or about a merciful God. We could have been taught a lot of different things. And people are taught a multitude of very different things. But we're all taught something, okay? The next step in the process is always we have some doubt that what we're taught really does not work for us. Whatever we're taught does not work. I don't believe exactly what I was taught in Catholic Church or Presbyterian Church or in Baptist Church. I don't believe exactly what was taught in my Jewish church or in my Islam mosque. For whatever reason, what was taught to me as a kid just doesn't seem to work. So this is usually in the teenage years. We're taught something from 0 to whatever, maybe 20 years old. Doubt, we may start to doubt at 8 or 10 years old. Through teenage years. It's a very common kind of thing, or maybe 20, or maybe we don't doubt what we're taught until we're in our 40s or 50s, and then we try to figure out a whole new way to go. We're all taught something. We all come to the point where we doubt what was taught because it's not working for us. The next step in our spiritual development is we explore. We start talking to other people. We ask other people what they think. We talk, we read other books, we think, we feel about what we're taught. We're looking at we're teaching ourselves something new, so we're taught something new. Now, a lot of people spend a lot of time in here, right? I mean, you could spend any time in here from 8 years old to 108 years old to 120 years old, right? You could spend a lot of time exploring, talking to other people, finding out what they believe. And this is really what we're going to do in the session tonight, is we're going to explore, we're going to share things that we believe, may help other people, right? So what happens as a result of this exploring is we come to faith. We come to believe something. Now, it may or may not be a strong belief. It may be very strong. It may feel like it's a revelation from God that's unique to us or unique to everyone. I'll suggest that if we have a revelation that we think is for everyone, we want to run it by other people who we know to make sure we're not crazy, because that's how cults start. Cults start by people having a revelation that they think is for everybody. That's also how wars start. Religious wars start by human beings having a revelation that they think is for everyone, and so they impose it on everyone, or at least try to, with wars or with cults or whatever else. But ultimately, people who have a strong belief and a strong faith in God and a higher power come to believe something that they've explored, they've read, they've talked with other people, they've thought about it, they've felt about it, and it creates some strong cognitive structures, and it creates, which is your thinking, okay, and it creates some strong intuition. I have a very strong intuition that God is merciful, He's caring, He loves me, and He wants me to stay clean and sober. And the more that I read the things that I read and pray and meditate, I can't believe I left that off of here. The more I pray and meditate, which is an exploring thing, the more I come to believe with a stronger faith. So what I want us to share in this group is, I don't want anybody to say, this is right, this is absolutely right, and you're absolutely wrong. That's not what I want to do here. What I want to do here is have people share their faith and their beliefs that actually help them to stay clean and sober. I want you to share with other people who are exploring, maybe you're having doubts. I want you to share things that actually have helped you. Share things about the spiritual world, about God, about your beliefs that have actually helped you to stay clean and sober. For example, I explored through some prayer and meditation and through some advice that Harry Jim E. in Philadelphia gave me in 1993 to take a car ride and yell and scream at God and let that anger out. Through that yelling and screaming at God, driving down the Highway 1 on the East Coast for about 2.5, 3 hours, I exhausted all that anger, and what I came to believe was that I needed to get out all that resentment, all that toxicity. I had to get out some false beliefs in order to come to the belief that I wasn't really mad at God. I was mad at other people who taught me how God was, that I believe now weren't right. So what I came to believe that day was that God had a plan for me, that God had a good purpose for me, plans for success and not failure, plans for good and not for evil. And that's really the thing that that I arrived at that day, was that my higher power, God, has a plan for me that's good and wonderful and pleasant and easy. One of my favorite scriptures is, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me." That's God's yoke. Take God's yoke upon you and learn from me. "For my yoke is easy and burden is light, and you'll find rest for your soul." One of my favorite verses. That verse helped me a lot in my spiritual progression. So I share that with people because I think that helps people development. Because I think that helps people to stay clean and sober, to believe in God, to believe in a good, loving, merciful God. So from here, I want you guys to share, to think about what you've learned, think about what you were taught, think about what you doubted, what didn't work, what you find that did work, and what you came to believe that helps you stay clean and sober, that helps you get rid of anxiety, and that helps you get rid of depression. So let's go that way, okay?